Hello, my name is Roman Ginjihashvili, and this is the video about Slav defense. Well, Slav defense, as you know, after d4, d5, c4, c6, it's one of the biggest chapters in modern chess theory. Actually, it's huge. It contains several different openings within. So it's almost as big as the Sicilian defense. Well, this video is not going to be for chess professionals because they already have good repertoire and they know how they want to play. However, for people who play chess, competitive chess, but not professional, not every competitive player is professional, I would recommend a universal system that will completely minimize black's options, will narrow amount of material you can learn, and give you a clear game. Always, when you take a shortcut to solution in the opening, so a lot of times the quality of the position suffers. Not in this case. You will have very competitive position that you will know how easy to play, and you will be very comfortable in dedicating minimum amount of time. What you do, you will eliminate regular Miran system that black plays. You will eliminate Botvinnik variation after bishop g5 and dc. So you will eliminate a lot of possibilities for black and many sharp variations in various different positions of Slav defense. Now, what I am recommending is after d4, d5, c4, c6 is to play c takes d, c takes d. Now, a lot of people wrongly assess this continuation as drawish. They think, oh, if white takes on d5, white would, that means white plays for a draw. Well, let me tell you this. This is not a play for a draw. I have played many times this for white, and not once I played for a draw. Well, also theory of this variation goes way back into young Botvinnik's time. Well, Botvinnik made a minimal research in this opening, and ever since it developed great deal. So, but now I'm presenting this to you in completely different fashion. I'm not going to give you all this complex variation. In every variation, I designed this white's opening and white's play the way you will have minimum effort on remembering a lot of variations, and also be competitive to play for advantage. Well, actually, it's going to be a little theory that I will show you what I developed, and mostly it's going to be games played with it. So let's go with the first game. First game, well, normally what plays in here, what is the way the continuations go here, and bishop f4. And now one of the main continuations here is bishop f5. Actually, For many years, it was the only move practically. Well, nowadays they play a6 and sometimes e6. But let's go one at a time. Let's go and look at bishop f5 games with bishop f5. First game I want to bring to your attention, game played in 2005 between Gata Kamsky and Magnus Carlsen. You know, Carlsen, nowadays he is #1 rated player in the world, and he couldn't have been too weak in 2005. He was already one of the best players in the world then. So what played after bishop f4 and bishop f5, e3. Actually, these games start with a different move order, but they got this position. e6, bishop b5, bishop b4, and many years ago the only continuation was queen a4 with minimal advantage for white, but Gata Kamsky played castling, black castled, rook c1, bishop takes c3, rook takes c3, and knight e4. After knight e4, rook c1, and black got overly ambitious and aggressive. g5. This idea is known very frequently in different positions. Black plays g5 and h5, and after bishop g3, h5. This aggression was immediately punished by Kamsky. Bishop takes c6, bc. Black's intention is they are trying to play h4. If white goes h3, they want to ruin white's king sign structure. Even this is okay for white because their king is a lot safer than black's king. Knight may go to e5. White is okay. But of course, the continuation that happened in the game is a lot stronger. Knight e5. That's the move that was missed by Carlsen. And after knight e5, he's practically lost. h4, completing the idea, attacking bishop on g3, but knight takes c6, queen d7, and bishop e5. Now white is intending to kick black's knight with f3, and bishop will be safe. So black is forced to be consistent, and they want f6, and after f6, f3, knight d6. Now taking on e5 is of course terrible, because after knight takes e5, attacking queen, and then taking on e4, black is completely lost. So black played knight d6, and then after bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, queen d2 was played, and white end up with extra pawn and practically winning position. Rook f7, b4, and trying to support knight on very strong position on c6, and also creating the pass pawn on the queen side. After b4, rook g7, it's an attempt to create some play on the king side. h3, rook e8, rook fe1, maybe e4 the idea, rook c7, rook fe1 was not necessary at all, rook c7, b5, a6, a4, A, B, A, B. Now, what can we tell? This is of course totally lost for black. White has extra pawn, pass pawn, big positional advantage, and all the files on the queen side. White control. So black lost in very few moves, and we're going to be stopping in the positions where everything, the outcome of the opening is clear, and there is nothing, practically there is no point of continuing. So I'm going to stop here in a position where white is completely winning and white won this game. Next game, same variation, played between two very strong players, 25 and 24 FIDE rated players. And actually, most of the game, huge majority of the game I bring is when both players, very strong players, CD, CD, knight c3, knight f6. It's a different move order, but eventually we're going to arrive to the same position. Bishop f4, knight c6, e3, bishop f5, knight f3, e6. Eventually we got to the critical position, which is 100% symmetrical. But there is a theory about symmetrical positions. When black can copy white's moves to a certain point, they cannot go too far copying moves, because as a rule it ends up very, very bad. And this game is no exception. So bishop b5, bishop b4, it was just the way the other game was played, Kamsky's game. Knight e5 and queen a5, castle, bishop takes c3, bishop takes c6, pawn takes c6, and white played bc, and now queen a6. Well, this position, so what can we say about this position? White has very strong knight on e5, but black may have the same. Identical pawn structure, black wants to castle, and white is still going to have to prove that they have anything in this position. So g4 was played. Okay, the nature of this position is white to try to do something real quick, because black will castle next move and they will have complete equality. So g4 was played, bishop g6, and now f3. After f3, black did not castle. Well, I was wondering why they didn't castle. So if black castles in this position, white will have clear advantage, I think, because they have several ways they can play this position. First, they can play rook f2, trying to get rook to b2 on open file, because b1 square is not accessible for white. So they can go rook f2, and interestingly enough, it's typical for this type of positions that black cannot do anything to prevent doubling white's rooks on b file. Rook b8 is out of question because knight takes g6, followed by bishop takes rook. So white will easily be playing rook b2 next move, and maybe even just to show you after rook b2 what can happen. Now they can eliminate the bishop on g6 and go rook b1. White has uncontested control on the b file, and they have clearly better position. So that's why black did not castle in this position. They played knight d7. Now after knight takes d7, king takes d7. Okay, now white does not have b1 square for rook, and bishop on g6 is 100% safe. What is not safe in this position is black's king. It's very well known that when you have opposite color bishops on the board, it's very good for the side that may create his chance to create attack on the king. Attack on the king with opposite color bishops makes it very, very strong. So queen b3 was played, and now f6. Okay, after f6, well, queen b3 is with possible intention of going queen b4 and queen d6. f6 was played, and I think queen b4 was good continuation here, but white played e4. e4 with the idea of rook b1 to blocking this diagonal. Well, black doesn't want to take the pawn. Taking pawn may be also very, very dangerous, because now queen b4, queen will come to d6, and also the e file opened for rook. All black wanted is to simplify position, playing queen b6, queen a3. Now black plays e5 because d4 pawn is pinned. There is a pin on the king. So, and after e5, rook a to b1. Here you can see there is a confrontation in the center, opposite color bishops, and black's king is in the center. Just one quick look can tell you that black is absolutely busted. Queen c7, d takes e, f takes e, and bishop g3. Rook will be coming to d1. Black king is under terrible crossfire, so the game is virtually over. Rook a b8. Of course, now b file is not important because there are already other files open for attack. Rook bd1, king e6, e takes d, c takes d, and rook fe1. This is perfect example. Every white's piece is in absolute attack mode, and black is totally helpless here. After rook fe1, queen b6, king h1, e4, f4, cf5 is coming, it's unstoppable. Rook b to f8, f5, no, desperate attempt sacrificing piece. Rook takes f5, but after rook takes e4, black reside here. If pawn takes, then simply rook d6 with overwhelming material advantage and helpless position for black. Very instructive game. Actually, the first one was instructive game. A lot of people, they think that, well, if I get opposite color bishops, or if I simplify, if I exchange a lot of pieces, then you should see I'm outlining here some very interesting details, very interesting resources in very simple positions. These next two games, played by world's famous GM Vasily Ivanchuk, are very, very instructive. He played those two games against two other grandmasters very close to his level. So we are talking about games on highest level. They played with the same variation, just what we looked. The first game is against one of the top players today. Well, he's not in top 5, but certainly in top 15. Grandmaster Dominguez from Cuba. Bishop f4, bishop f5. Ivanchuk is white, e3, e6. Although it was played with accelerated time control, but we are talking about some very strong players. So bishop b5. Now we're talking about knight d7 move. Now let me tell you some history of this move. This is today in this particular position is the main move. So black is preventing knight e5 and trying to finish development quick, and it's been known that it gives black equality, but I'm not so sure, and so is Ivanchuk. So let's look at the games. Knight d7, queen a4. The first game, well, this game is against Dominguez, and next game is against, we're going to look at, is against new uprising star and the youngest grandmaster and the most talented, they say, player today in the world, Anish Giri from India. So, but this game, well, you will see what's the difference between those two games. After knight d7 and queen a4, rook c8 was played, and white plays castle. Now, I want to stop right here. Instead of castling, there is a variation that you definitely can adapt. And I was playing many games, but lately black has found some close to equalizing possibilities. And I want to show you this variation. So we derail from the game for a while, and I will show it to you. This is bishop takes c6, rook takes c6, and queen takes a7. This was regarded as very suspicious continuation for white because of black's move queen c8, threatening to trap the queen by rook a6, and also threatening to play rook takes c3, winning the game. White would play queen a5, and if rook a6, then queen c7. Now, if black tries to trap white's queen anyway by playing rook c6 next move, white would castle here, and on rook c6 they have very strong response knight b5. Well, most of the variations here, almost all variations favor white, and the only thing, well, actually there is bishop d3 move. Bishop d3 move that has to be taken seriously because it will prevent white's knight b5 in future and also stop white from castling. And on bishop d3 there were games that played with the king d2 and also rook d1, and it's rather complicated positions, but if you are interested, there is certainly material available in the database and you can look at it. I don't want to go on with it for a different reason. I used to play this for white, and the only thing that discouraged me from playing this position, rook a6. And this is going to answer the question whether white plays for a draw or not. Queen c7, and the best way to play for black. Queen takes c7, bishop takes c7, rook c6, bishop goes back to f4 or g3, it doesn't make difference, and now bishop a3. Black has very good drawing chances, and since we are playing white, I wouldn't be happy with this position for white, because it's going to be very, very hard to win this position. We have an extra pawn, double a pawn, and although computers say, Ripka says that after bishop d6 white is better, but it's so insignificantly that this discourages me, and I treat this position as more like drawish. That's why I stopped thinking about taking this pawn. But if anyone wants to go on research and playing bishop takes c6, it's definitely worthwhile looking at. White is by no means worse here. Well, now let's go back to the game between Ivanchuk and Dominguez. In this position, after queen a4, rook c8, white castled, black goes a6, white takes, black takes, and white goes rook fc1. White is a bit ahead in development, and also they try to take over the c file while black is developing. Okay, so after rook f2 c1, now black has to continue development, bishop e7, knight e2, queen b6. Of course, black doesn't want to exchange rooks and castle because white has initiative, c file. I don't know if rook c7 is good because of e5 is attacking bishop and the rook. But white doesn't have to play rook c7 right away. They can go queen b3. They can attacking the b7 pawn. They can even play bishop c7, and on queen c8 bishop d6 attacking the queen. So white clearly has initiative here, and so black played queen b6. It's a very simple game. Rook takes c6, queen takes c6, queen takes c6, bc, rook c1, bishop d3. Here Ivanchuk made a mistake, and after which game should have been equal. Ivanchuk played knight c3 to follow by knight a4 and continue putting pressure on the c pawn. Well, but the correct move was highly unusual and counterintuitive, which is very hard to play during the game. However, this was the best move. And move I'm talking about is king f1. It's very straightforward. c6 pawn is hanging, and black has to do something. And after c5, d takes c, knight takes c5, knight f2 d4. This is very, very subtle move. And knight takes d4. All black needs is to castle or to safeguard its king, and they will have even better position. They have a better pawn structure, they have two bishops. But after knight f2 d4, they may be in trouble. Well, they cannot castle for sure, because knight c6 move wins immediately, attacking the bishop that has no moves. And if bishop is protected, they will take the bishop and knight. And obviously bishop cannot go to f6 because it has to guard the c5 knight. And probably the best move is a5, and after knight c6, white has clear advantage. Well, that's what should have played. Well, it's interesting that even after the move knight c3 that was played in the game, black went c5, dc, knight takes c5, and now again, the reason why black played c5, it's very typical for this pawn formation. Castling is very, very dangerous, because after knight a4, black may remain forever with a weak c pawn, or maybe even knight e5. And we see it's going to be very difficult for black to play c5, because on c5 right now they may simply lose a pawn for no compensation at all. So if they don't go c5 now, they may never have a chance to go c5. So c5 was played. Those are very strong players, and they know essentials of this type of position. D takes c, knight takes c5, knight e5. Again, black never catches a break. They cannot castle because b4 will attack the knight that protects the bishop. So this is out of question. And after knight e5, f6. And now white lost all its advantage, but went on to win a game anyway. So white played knight c6. That seems like very logical move, but the best move was knight a4. It's also kind of hard to see this move. Knight cannot be taken on a4 because it will create a lot of problems for black. Well, actually, the check is good, and now simply knight takes d3, not knight c6 because of king d7. But after knight takes d3, a pawn is weak, king is not castle, and I don't know what is knight doing on a4. So this is very bad. So knight a4 was missed. Well, and if black takes the knight, this is actually a fascinating position. Knight takes c5, and after bishop c4, bishop takes c5, and on bishop takes c4, b3. White gets pawn back, having big advantage. Bishop a3 will be simply met by rook c2. White gets the piece back, and of course bishop takes b3 will be met by rook c8 check. Therefore, it's very, very difficult position for black. But this was missed again. Knight a4 wasn't played, knight c6 was played, and after bishop c4, b3, knight d3, white still kept advantage. It's interesting how black is like one move away from happiness, and happiness is to be saved and castle. On knight d3, rook d1. I have to point that Initially, I said it's very easy to play position for white. What I mean is you bypassing whole big theory. So this was all already played on the board by both players. Well, and if you are a weaker player, and if you are a weak player, well, the stronger player is going to outplay you anyway. But on equal level, you get position that you have very, very good potentials. And this is a good illustration of that. Knight takes f4, b takes c, knight g6, c takes d, e takes d, knight takes d5. And now we are in the stage where I said that I wouldn't want to continue analyzing because we are already way past the point of interest for this opening. White has completely winning position. So white missed a couple of very good chances and still end up with a big advantage and won the game. This means something. And well, next game will be one more good illustration of power of this position. So here is the game against uprising star Indian Grandmaster Anish Giri. It started with c4, but as I already mentioned, you can start this many different ways. d4, knight f6, cd, bishop f4, knight c6, e3, bishop f5, knight f3, e6, bishop b5. Well, there is the position again, knight d7, queen a4, and queen b6. After queen b6, knight h4 was played, and black played bishop e4. Now, in this position, white castled. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this knight h4 move. Knight h4 move allows bishop d3. It's not a blunder, because after bishop takes d3, queen takes b2, black may simply end up with an extra pawn. Well, bishop d3 is not a good move, because white has an advantage after knight takes d5, attacking the queen. And now, if e takes d, well, obviously queen takes b5 is out of question. And if e takes d, now white will take on d3. After queen takes b2, they may even castle, and they have really huge advantage. Well, that's why black plays bishop e4. And now, if white goes f3, then bishop d3 is a much better move, because after knight takes d5, even if black takes on d5, and now you see the knight is in a lot of cases very poorly placed. They don't even they can even play maybe bishop takes b5, and on knight b6, bishop a4, knight a6, they may end up losing this knight. So this is not a good idea. This is all theoretical. f3 was played several times, but castling is a better move. So it's not the variation we're looking for. We're looking, type of position will be very, very similar to the previous games we looked. although it's different variation. What you're studying here, not the move order and exact moves you have to play, you have to study and learn the nature of the position. So after castling, a6 was played. White played rook a to c1. Of course, bishop is untouchable because of rook is hanging. Bishop e7 was played, attacking the knight on h4. f3. Bishop g6 needs to be played because taking the knight is very dangerous for black. Bishop g6. Knight takes g6 hg, bishop takes c6, bc. And rook c2. That's a good move, protecting the pawn and preparing to double. On c5, c5 was played, and rook f to c1. And here, c4, played by black. Well, I don't like white's next move, and with the help of my faithful companion Rivka, we found here some very, very powerful continuation for white. Now let's look at this position. All black has, the good thing for black is their pawn structure. They have very good double pawn that enables this strengthens black's kingside position and also keeps h-file open for black rook. They have very good pawn structure, pawn on c4 too. C-file is blocked, but what they don't have is sufficient development. So it's very, very time-sensitive position. e4 was a bad move. Of course, no one wants to take this d pawn because after king h1, it exposes. See, black can never castle because knight is hanging. It exposes the d file, so white can go rook d2 and rook d1, and then later take on d5 and completely destroy black's position. Black played bishop d6 and they had good position, but we're going to go on with the game. Now, let's see the recommendation. When you have, this is actually, I was very surprised with Ivanchuk. You have two rooks on c file. Now let me ask you a question. Isn't it logical? It's only logical to open the c file when you have two rooks placed there. This was highly surprising for me, and I thought b3 would be a good move. And when I asked Rivka and got Rivka's help, b3, it showed me that b3 is a lot better move even than I expected. Well, taking on b3 may be devastating, probably hopeless for black. Now knight is going to move and c file is going to kill them. So, and on rook c8, now Rivka makes very good move, bishop g3, indicating that black has no useful moves. Now she's going to go knight e2. Bishop g3 is designed to stop g5 with the tempo, or maybe bishop d6. So bishop g3 is just solid, quiet move. And in order to castle, where black cannot castle now, they have to protect the knight on d7. But then rook b1. This is the key of whole position. Now white is threatening to take on c4 and to win the game. And after c takes b, rook takes b3. Well, you cannot overestimate white's position. I think black is simply busted here. White has all the files on the queen side and a big positional advantage. On queen c6, I think even rook b2 is very strong. Well, how about taking and going rook b7? It's a very difficult position, maybe lost position for black. That's what missed by Ivanchuk. Here is the position. Not e4. You don't need to play e4. You need to play b3 and open the c file. Now, why would player on Ivanchuk's level miss such a simple opportunity, and why logic did not dictate to him to go b3? Well, I looked at position because it was bothering me, and here is my conclusion. What happened here is, after e4, white is going to have just as good a result open e file or d file and maintaining black's king in the center, if not the move that was played by black. So the answer is white simply missed black's resource here, and resource is bishop d6. Now, if white goes e5, then why did we go e4 at all? And also there's queen takes d4, followed by queen takes f4. So bishop takes d6, queen takes d6. And now h3 can be simply met by castling, and white has nothing. So white simply missed bishop d6 move. Otherwise, e4 would have been just as effective as b3. That's my explanation. So what happened in the game, white exchanged rooks, exchanged bishops, and they played e takes d, which led to a draw. Queen takes h2 check, king f2, queen h4, g3, queen h2, king e3, queen h6, king f2, queen h2. Perpetual, and it's a draw. Very instructive game. Again, why result after the opening? White was almost winning. Now, when these games pile up and you look at them and you analyze, I got more and more convinced that it's very difficult for black to equalize here. But there are more games in a different continuations. We're going to look just now. Here is the game played with the same variation as we just looked. Players are not on world-class level, but they are strong enough to take this game seriously, to consider it seriously. It became between two strong masters, around 2350 FIDE rated. So let's look at the game. d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6. Well, I always make mistakes in move order because there's so many ways these positions can be reached. Knight c3, knight c6, bishop f4, bishop f5, e3, e6, bishop b5, knight d7, queen a4, queen b6, knight h4, and in Ivanchuk Giri's position, game, bishop e4 was played, and bishop g4 was played in this game. Obviously, it's a home preparation move, not very successful. h3, bishop h5, g4. White simply tries to get two bishops, and in this position, actually, that is a known position. e4 is very, very strong. Now white is trying to open position. If de is d5, very powerful, trying to open position. Having two bishops, taking is out of question, and because knight c7 check is coming, and taking on d4 is out of question because white simply wins a piece. So that's why bishop g6 is not so good. Bishop e7 was played, attacking the h4 knight. But on bishop e7, white gets quickly decisive advantage. Knight f5. So white is exchanging his knight for the bishop, but not on those terms. They want it on their own terms. Now, if ef, then knight takes d5 will be there, and later take on d5. Even if you take on h5, this pawn is too weak. g5 is open. This is bad position for black. They played bishop g6. Black is okay with white taking on g7, because after king f8, bishop knight h5, this extra pawn is worthless. White can get a lot better position by taking the bishop. That's what happened. King takes e7. You cannot take with a knight because d7 knight will be lost. So king takes. Now queen a3 check and king e8. Now black can never castle. White has two bishops. Position cannot be too good for black. White castles, they are absolutely safe because all black's pieces are on queen side. f6, trying to bring the king on f7. Very strong move, paralyzing black, because on king f7 knight hangs. Knight f8, a4, supporting the bishop and also maybe threatening a5. And after a6, a5, and on queen d8, this is already disastrous for black. Pawn takes, queen takes, king f7, rook fc1. And that's where I want to stop, because we are beyond the point of interest of this opening. White has big positional advantage and an extra pawn, and all these squares on queen side. Black is totally lost, and I want to stop analyzing this game right here. Now, I want to show you a game that is very, very interesting and very creatively played by white. There are two players of 24 and 25 FIDE rated players. Very interesting innovation and very fresh idea. c4, c6, you're going to see the same opening. d5, cd, cd, knight c3, knight c6, bishop f4, e6, a6. Now, what can I tell you about this a6 move? a6 move, several years ago it was invented. The idea, let me explain the idea. When some of you can think it's absolute disaster and very counterintuitive move and total loss of tempo. No, it's not so. This move clearly has a point. Here is the point. Black's goal is comfortable development of their pieces, namely both bishops. Well, of course they can go e6 and then go bishop d6 and comfortably develop this bishop, dark square bishop, but then bishop on c8 will be locked. Bishop f5 allows some concrete variations, and we saw just about half a dozen games on that. a6 move is a waiting move, and also in number of cases stops knight b5. If bishop g4, this position favors white after knight e5, and bishop on g4 is under attack. Also white can take on c6 and create weakness. So a6 move is waiting for natural reaction for white, which is e3, and then bishop g4 will prevent knight e5, and later on black can even take that knight and go e6. Two bishops are meaningless here because it's not wide open position. It's a closed center, and black is doing just fine. So that's the point of this move. And knight e5 is one of the common continuations in this position. I remember this was played by Kamsky in Spain in a match, World Championship qualifying match against Nigel Short, where I was Kamsky's second, and we did analyze knight e5. It was in a critical game where Kamsky was white ahead, and he got big advantage, but the draw was equivalent to a win, and game ended in a draw, but white did get a big advantage after knight e5. Well, in this case, knight e5, e6, one of the most common moves. Most common move is probably the best move is queen b6, which we're gonna look at later. So e6, e3, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop e7, bishop d3. I have had this position numerous times. Castle, played rook c1. The move played in this game, very unusual and good, g4. Now, when do you play a wing move like this off of your king position? Only when your opponent cannot open the center. Wing moves, wing pawn pushes are, as a general rule, of course, are very, very dangerous if your opponent can open the center. There are a lot of examples of it, mostly in Sicilian, where in this case, black cannot open anything. g4, black ignored b5, and game ended in just a few moves. They should have done something like knight d7, then white probably plays bishop g3 followed by h4 and slowly creeping on the king side. But this b5 move became a critical mistake. g5, knight d7, and you see how quickly black collapsed. Actually, very well played game. Bishop takes, king takes, queen h5 check. Every move is forced. King g8, bishop takes g7, threatening mate, no options. Queen h6 check, king g8, g6, and after g6, f takes g. Well, what would happen on king f8? Probably simple rook g1 will end the game real quick. fg takes, and queen takes g6, king h8, queen h6, king g8. White sacrificed two bishops, and they have only two pieces attacking black's king. But the problem, black's problem, is that they have no pieces defending it. So after rook g1, bishop g5 is forced, since king f7 leads to a mate in one move. Bishop g5 is forced, rook takes g5, queen takes g5, queen takes g5, king f7, knight takes d5. Now if pawn takes, queen takes d5, check, taking the rook. Well, and after knight takes d5, actually that's what was played. I see absolutely no point in continuing with this game. You see a quick disaster. And again, the key move, g4. Now, I want to teach you something about the move like g4. It's okay to do. It weakens white's king position. But white has big advantage in development. They have two powerful bishops aiming black's king position. And after g5 and h4, there is a good chances for quick, unprepared kingside attack. And this game is a good example of an opening disaster. Very instructive. Okay, here is the that queen b6 move I just mentioned, but we didn't analyze it. Well, let me tell you something. In this position, well, knight e5 was the move that played in the last game. We just looked, and I mentioned that queen b6 is the best response. Yes, queen b6 is the best response. But before we discuss that, let me talk to you about knight e5 move. Knight e5 is not by far the most popular move. It's not the most popular move. There is e3 move. There is also interesting move, rook c1. Rook c1 also, the reason why white doesn't play e3, but it gives still white an opportunity to play knight e5, since pawn is still on a2 if black plays bishop g4. There is rook c1, there is e3, and see, the a6 is the type of move that does not create any problem. a6 is the move designed for black to solve problems rather than create. They try to solve, they try to play safe. So even e3 and bishop g4, if white goes bishop e2, eventually black is gonna give up the bishop. Two bishops, it's not much of an advantage, but I think still white is slightly better. Also, there is a possibility of playing with rook c1 instead of e3, as well as knight e5. Knight e5 is one of the options. So that's where I don't have to give you one clearly best choice, best move, because there is no such a thing. Any one of these three moves will give you guaranteed very comfortable position for white. But I want to look at this game. Knight e5, queen b6, knight takes c6, b takes c, and queen d2. Well, in this game, and I'm sure a lot of people will be tempted to follow the same continuations as black played in this game. Knight e4, knight takes e4, de. You see, this is the type of position that a lot of players below master level, they will be tempted to go for, because there is a, for example, if white plays e3, they lose immediately after e5, attacking the bishop and threatening bishop b4. This is very powerful threat, e5. But position is much better for white anyway. So all white has to do is, of course, prevent e5 by playing a3, and this position already is not good. E6, e3, bishop e7, bishop e2, castles, and castles. I've had this position several times. It's highly unpleasant position for black. Now, what would they play? Now, if c5, you can simply take, go rook c1, and go rook d1. How much more do you want? Or you can go b4, actually, and try to go b5 if black plays a5. They cannot play a5 right away because bishop c7 simply wins the pawn. But this is very, very good position for white. Black played a5. The game ended in a draw, but I will show you that white had big positional advantage. Rook fc1, bishop a6. Rook c3, bishop b5. Rook ac1. Rook fc8. Well, player with black was a lot stronger player than with white. That's my only explanation why white didn't win the game. And after rook a6, move was played next was totally shocking me. It's a sign of inexperience and bad judgment. You see how we looked in the previous games that g4 was powerful. That's how g4 is pitiful here. It's absolutely terrible move. Has nothing to do with position. White has advantage on the queen side. Therefore, effort should be directed on the queen side. g4 has nothing to do with it. g4 is a bad move, and the only point for g4 move is what happened in the game, a4, and now they go queen c2, because that's to stop f5, because then white is going to take and go d5, but black is playing bishop f8. Well, if you take on e4, then b2 hangs. So it's after b4, ab, rook takes b3, they simply agreed to a draw. Now a3 pawn is weak. And what is g4 pawn? g4 move has nothing to do with the game of chess. Now, what would we do here? Not g4. I don't mind making move like h3. It's opening loop for a king. That's a logical move. I don't know what is black gonna do here. I may go later rook c1, for example h6, rook c1, c2, maybe then queen c4, continue putting pressure, or maybe even after king h7, for example, maybe even f3, and putting pressure this way with a chance of organizing some kind of attack on a king side. So white has advantage in its center, on the king side and on the queen side, and g4 doesn't help any of these cases. Well, that's instructive game. Even some worst moves that you see played on a board should be to your benefit. When you see that, well, you would know that that's where your logic mode was totally unplugged and insanity was on full power. So g4 was terrible move, and this is a big advantage for white. That's the conclusion of this game. The last game I want to go over in this variation, this is a very critical game, was played last year between two 2,700 plus federated players, between some very high rated players, Dmitry Yakovenko from Russia and Sergei Karyakin, also from Russia. So after d4, d5, c4, c6, cd, cd, knight c3, knight c6, knight f3, knight f6, bishop f4, a6. In this position, white played the move I just mentioned a little while ago when I analyzed last game, rook c1. Rook c1, as I already mentioned, designed against bishop g4, knight e5. That's why white delays e3 move. So bishop f5, knight e5, rook c8. Position, that's the subtle part of this variation for white. Position always looks so symmetrical, so simple, but yet white never plays for a draw. And this is actually a great example of it. That's why I picked this game. e3, e6, queen b3, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, queen to d7, protecting b7 pawn, bishop e2, bishop e7, castle for both sides, and white already has good size advantage, because knight on c3 is much better than knight on f6, because it's going to be going to places now. And also position of white's king, offensive, black's king defensive. After knight a4, white has a clear advantage. It's very difficult to give good suggestions to black. So rook takes c1, rook takes c1, and rook c8. Obviously, black wants to exchange as many pieces as possible. Rook takes c8, queen takes c8. I think this is already a good size advantage for white. Knight c5, bishop takes c5. This has to be played because b pawn is hanging. Moving b6 will lose the a pawn, and well, actually moving b6 will lose the b pawn too. And playing b5 is extremely anti-positional, gives white's pieces all the key squares on the board. a4 may be very devastating here. So black played bishop takes c5, dc. Well, and now taking on c5 is, as you can see, doesn't look very good for black. There is no bishop d3 due to back rank mate, and any prophylactic moves will be made by queen takes a6. White is simply up a material. Black didn't take on c5, and they simply played knight d7, bishop d6, and now queen c6, queen c3, f6. Well, this is actually interesting position, and let me tell you something about this position. This is much better position for white. White has two bishops. They have potentials of making pass pawn on the queen side, but the problem is that position is closed. 7 pawns on the board. when there are 7 pawns on each side on the board, it always makes it difficult for bishops. So after f6, h3, e5 was played by black. They want to go bishop e6 and to hold the center. Then b4, bishop e6, queen b3, actually very well played by white. They are pinning the pawn d5, the pawn cannot be moved. King, after queen b3, b5 was played. Now white is threatening b5. On any move like king f7, b5 may be very, very strong for white. So black played b5. Understandably, they want to close position to mobilize white's bishops. Of course, we cannot take en passant, so they just trying to disable white's bishops. The white played e4. Well, king f7, and now devastating blow in a position, bishop g4, that makes it almost hopeless for black. On bishop takes g4, simply ed will be terrible. So queen b7, now queen c2, taking queen out of this diagonal, and also threatening ed, taking the pawn on h7. After queen c2, bishop takes g4, hg, and queen c6. Well, it's interesting to see that if black goes d4, then after queen b3 they lose almost immediately. And on king g6 there is queen e6, and with the threat of queen e8, black obviously cannot last long here. Position is already totally winning for white. Queen c6, queen b3, king e6, and another very powerful move, g5. Point to play queen h3 check, and black's king is very unsafe. g5, a5, that's a desperation move. Queen h3 check, king f7, e takes the attacking queen, and knight is hanging. Queen takes d5, queen takes d7, and black resign. Now this is the game on the world's highest level. It seemed so simple. Yeah, the reason why it seemed so simple, because the position was so simple. And the reason I recommend this to you to play, because it is simple to play, and at the same time it's very competitive, very challenging for black. And that's why I love this system. And all you have to do is get enough material, look at more and more and more games. Now, before we finish, I want to mention one more thing. After d4, d5, c4, c6, cd, cd, what is our next move? Is it knight c3? Is it knight f3? Well, different players play differently. If you go knight c3, you have to be prepared for e5, which I think is not very good, because white takes d4, knight e4. Well, theoretically, it's knight f3 is very good move too, but if I had to give you one choice, just play this, d4, knight e4, and on queen a5 check. This is how theory goes. Now go simply knight d2. Now, what's the point? How is white going to develop? Queen takes e5. You go knight f3 and g3, bishop g2, and castle quick. So what you're going to get Tarrasch type of position where black has isolated pawn and they're a couple of tempos down. This position is certainly not the position to recommend for black. And I would say this is very good way to play and a safe way to play. Well, there's nothing wrong with knight f3 as well. So basically, this position you're gonna get no matter what. Now, if e6 played, well, there is no theory. What you play here is simply develop your pieces. Now, I would recommend to go h3 here. Why h3? Because in this position, if black goes knight h5, you go bishop g5. And after bishop e7, if you go bishop d3, knight h5, black is going to get your dark square bishop, which we want to keep. That's why I would recommend h3, castle, bishop d3. Now this is simple position, symmetrical. You just develop, go rook c1, queen b3, where you have bishop on f4 versus corresponding bishop on c8. That's the same bishop that was on c1 we have on f4, and this bishop needs many moves way past the middle game to get into the game. That's why white has very simple position. As I said, it's not winning, it's very competitive, it's good position to play for white. Well, actually, in this position now, if black goes a6 and b5 the way they normally do, hey, why don't we go g4 and follow this game, same idea as the game we just looked previously, and we go g4, g5, h4. There is no way black can open position in its center. So g4 is very reasonable, as well as castling. So either way, white is having very comfortable game. So my last word, this position that you can get against anyone who plays Slav, this position is very comfortable for white to play, and it's not so easy for black to equalize. It's very challenging and not too much to learn. What you have to learn is basic ideas. You don't have to memorize anything. So you have to get some experience with it, play more games, and something that will replace your experience, look at the strong players' games played by white. Well, I hope you enjoy playing this variation of Slav, and I wish you very good luck with it. Thank you.